Hello, my creeplings. Today we're talking about one that's a horror movie, but it's not very gory, but it is a masterpiece. We're talking about the Candyman. Candyman is a very artistic and well shot, well written horror film released in 1992. Very loosely based on a Clive Barker story called The Forbidden. It was directed by Bernard Rose, and this has got some of the best names ever involved in it. We have the amazing Mr. Tony Todd, horror icon, playing our big man, the Candyman, Daniel Robitaille. We have Virginia Madsen, Highlander 2, not Frank Herbert's Dune, David Lynch's version of Frank Herbert's Dune, Witches of East End. I think there was a movie with Jim Carrey called 23. The woman's been in a lot of stuff, and she's an amazing actress. We have Xander Berkeley plays her character's husband. So we have Virginia Madsen plays Helen, our heroine. Tony Todd plays the Candyman. Thought I was going to hiccup, excuse me. Xander Berkeley plays Helen's husband. What's his name? Trevor. Xander Berkeley, I know him most from some of the later seasons of The Walking Dead, from where they got the hilltop. He played the jerk leader, and he plays a jerk in this one. Beginning to wonder if that's all he plays is jerks. I'm going to have to look into him eventually. Cameo by Ted Raimi at the beginning, and I'll get into that in a minute. Because it's pretty much the very beginning. And then our director, Bernard Rose, has a cameo as well as one of Helen and Trevor's fellow graduate students, professors type deal. Fellow collegiates, that's what I'll say. So we open the film with a very artsy pan of Chicago. This film does take place in Chicago. And we meet the woman we're focusing on, Helen. Helen and her friend, co-worker, Bernadette, are doing a thesis on modern urban legends and folklore. They're interviewing people. Well, we open up with is it a flash? It's not so much a flashback, but we're watching a story take place while someone tells it. I can't remember what the name of that mechanic is. So this college-age girl, I think they said they were interviewing freshmen, is telling Helen about, oh yeah, this is my friend's boyfriend knows this guy. You know how urban legends start, friend of a friend of a friend. So yeah, there was this chick babysitting, and even though she was babysitting just one little infant, so it's not like there was a ton of kids around. Instead of inviting her regular boyfriend over, who she'd been dating for about 6 months, oh no, she invites bad boy Billy over, because she decides she's gonna give Billy what she wasn't giving her other boyfriend. Now here's where the Ted Raimi cameo comes in. He's playing Billy Badass, which for him is going way beyond type. So there was part of me that was like, ooh, okay. And I had to rewatch the scene a couple times. Because I couldn't get past the fact that he's not playing the nerd or the victim for once. So she takes him upstairs. She's, half undressed, and she tells him about, have you ever played Candyman? Which is very similar to Bloody Mary to the rest of the world. You say his name into the mirror 5 times, and you turn the lights out, he'll show up, and he'll apparently kill you. Kind of like here, if you say Bloody Mary into a mirror, depending on what part of the Midwest you're in, it's anywhere from 3 to 5 times she'll show up and the mirror will start bleeding. Same idea. Well, Billy tries to be be game and go with it. The whole time he's trying to get what he wanted to get. That's where I was getting distracted. Not gonna lie. He gets to 4 Candymans in the mirror, and he makes his move. She's like, no, not here. You go downstairs and wait on me. I'm sitting here thinking, girl, why you Candymaning when you got that waiting for you? But again, I digress. I'm sorry. I ain't playing no games when I'm wanting to get my attention on, if you know what I mean. So he goes downstairs, cracks open a beer. This stupid bunny turns around, says Candyman one more time into the mirror, and turns the light off. Well, pan downstairs to Billy enjoying his beer with a smug look on his face, and then there's blood dripping from the ceiling, and there's a scream. Cut to the college student who's telling the story, and apparently Candyman killed the babysitter and the baby. Billy survived, but he went crazy, and his hair went white from shock. That's the last we see or hear of them. They're our opening idea into the world of the Candyman. So Helen starts digging into this, and she's transcribing the interview in her office. And the cleaning lady's like, oh yeah, I know about Candyman. Apparently in the Cabrini Green projects in Chicago, Candyman is a big deal. There were some murders that were attributed to him. And her friend, who also is a cleaner, lives in Cabrini Green. I'm going to stutter over that. I apologize. And she tells her about, I think the character's name is Ruby Jenkins. Or Ruby Jean, maybe? About how she died and no one found the killer and they all attributed it to Candyman. And she's like, but I don't know nothing about that. Meaning, I really shouldn't be talking about this, but you asked, so I'm warning you, kind of a tone. Helen, in her infinite wisdom, decides to chase this down. Takes Bernadette, who sometimes I will refer to as Bernie, just so you don't get confused. Bernadette and Bernie are the same person. To the projects, to the Cabrini Green building, and she starts investigating. First, I think she's a cop. So, of course, everyone starts yelling 5-0, 5-0, gotta go. And variations thereof. They make it to Ruby Jean's apartment, and they had figured out earlier that there's nothing separating the bathroom wall from the next apartment's bathroom wall, but a medicine chest. Because apparently Helen's apartment is built the exact same way. It was meant to be projects, but they zhuzhed it up and made it high-class housing. So she uses that information to break into the next empty apartment to see if, there was evidence or anything. Instead, you find a shrine to the Candyman with all this great graffiti and all this stuff. So she's getting ready to leave, and she eventually wins the trust of and talks to Ruby's neighbor. I'm going to double check this character's name, excuse me. Anne-Marie. Anne-Marie tells her what she knows, introduces her to her baby Anthony, who's like a tiny infant. Helen goes on her way after taking copious amounts of pictures everywhere. And stupid Helen the night before did Candyman as well, but he didn't show up and didn't kill her. So seems like she's trying to disprove the theory or the legend. Excuse me, not theory. So she and Bernadette go their separate ways. All right. She does more research. They meet back up with, or she meets up with her husband, Trevor, who's a college professor teaching folklore and literature and things like that. She's kind of pissy with him because she didn't want him to teach the folklore and urban legend section until after they were done interviewing the college freshmen. Now she thinks her pool is tainted. And he seems to be very flirty-eyed with one of his female students. Pardon me. Allergy season. Is there another one in there? All right. Crisis averted. And she's like, you better not be doing anything stupid. And he's like, no, everything's fine. I know she's got a crush on me, but hands off. He's a dick. We get to a point where there's a dinner where one of their colleagues, I believe this is the character played by the director, knows more about the Candyman legend, and he fills them in. Candyman is the ghost of an African American son of a former slave who became a great painter. And unfortunately, he had a relationship with a white woman. And this was at the end of the 19th century, beginning of the 20th century. So, there was still a lot of racial tension going on. That was taboo. He got her pregnant, and her dad paid some ruffians to kill him. And what they did was they cut his hand off, jammed a hook on the bloody stump, stripped him naked, laid him out in the fields, which is now Cabrini Green, stole some honeycomb from a nearby apiary, smeared him with it, and let the bees have their way with him. And he died. So now his vengeful ghost haunts the Cabrini Green projects. That's a mouthful. Helen goes to do more investigating and ends up getting attacked in the public restroom by a man claiming to be the Candyman. Turns out it was a gang leader. Little kid named Jake gives her some more information about what happened in that bathroom. Apparently, a developmentally disabled young man was violently castrated. So that's why Helen was in the bathroom. Helen's beat up. Helen identifies the assailant, and it turns out he was a gang leader from the area. So, of course, the police are going to pin all the killings on him, send him up the creek without a paddle. Helen goes home, tries to live her life. She gets her photos back from Bernadette. Bernie made them into slides. And she's busy checking out the slides in the parking garage all by herself, like an idiot. You never go to a parking garage by yourself. Never. And she hears this soft voice, like, oh, Tony Todd has got a voice like butter and velvet. Oh. That's the thing about the Candyman that I love. He's not a loud villain. He's not bombastic and in your face. He is subtle in his vocalizations, and he's dangerous. His spirit shows up and he's like, Helen, you didn't believe me. So now there must be innocent blood spilled to keep his legend going. He's hypnotizing her. She doesn't scream. She's just like, no, I have to go. I'm late. She blacks out. She wakes up in a bathroom in an apartment covered in blood. You hear screaming. Turns out she's in Anne Marie's apartment. She's covered in blood because Anne Marie's Rottweiler has been beheaded. Poor puppy. And baby Anthony is missing. Anne Marie's going berserk because baby Anthony is missing. And they're going to pin it all on Helen. Helen's arrested. Then Helen's released to Trevor. Helen starts going into it and looking into her slides, and she realizes that the picture that she took at the bathroom of the first victim's apartment, she messes around with it a little bit. Daniel Robitaille's standing right behind her. So she's been being stalked since the beginning by his spirit. Bernie shows up to talk to her at the same time that, again, Candyman's spirit is stalking her and hypnotizing her. And to make a long story short, Candyman kills Bernadette. And again, they think Helen did it. And now they think Helen's completely crazy. She's locked up in an asylum for a month on heavy doses of Thorazine. She doesn't even know she's gone for a month. So at this point, we have the baby missing for over a month. We have Helen out of commission for a month. And just craziness. They finally start bringing Helen out of it so that she's not basically comatose or fully sedated, to talk to her doctor. Well, she says, I can prove it. I can call him. And she turns her head, and Candyman's 5 times into the mirror. Sure enough, he shows up, kills the doctor, jumps out. He's actually pulled backwards out of a window. It's kind of a cool looking stunt. Helen escapes via that window, and instead of laying low, she goes straight home to Trevor, who we find out has moved that little student love bunny in and has been cheating on Helen the entire time. This is why I say Trevor's an ass. So Helen's kind of like, a little bugging. She runs off. And, again, Daniel's stalking her in her mind. And she eventually ends up at the projects again. This time, she does kind of give herself over to Daniel. She's like, I will be your victim. Just stop this. At least that's how I understood it. I've seen this movie a couple times, and every time I find a new layer of something. There's a lot going on. Long and the short of it is, she finds baby Anthony in the bonfire pile, or the pile of junk that they created to make a bonfire later to appease the Candyman. She goes to save him, and there's a showdown with the spirit of Daniel Robitaille, in which she triumphs to a point. She rescues baby Anthony, but at the cost of her own life. Because they set the pyre ablaze. She comes crawling out. Her body's covering the baby. And this is such a poignant scene. Body's covering the baby. She's all in flames. It was a good stunt. It was a very good stunt. But the baby's alive. The Candyman's been defeated, and Helen dies. You cut to Helen's funeral. Of course, fucking Trevor's there with the fucking girlfriend. And then 2 colleagues. One of which is the one who told her about the Candyman to begin with, the director cameo. As they're lowering her casket into the ground, everyone from Cabrini Green comes to pay their respects, led by Anne Marie and little Jake, the little boy. Now Jake leaves a tribute in the form of the hand hook. They found it, and they drop it on the casket like you would a flower. That fades out. We go to Trevor and Dumb Bunny. I can't remember the character's name. All I know is you don't sleep with your college professor. That's just rude. Especially when he's married. We jump to their apartment shortly after the funeral. He's distraught. Now he's feeling sorry. He says Helen's name 5 times in the mirror. And Helen's vengeful spirit shows up and Trevor got what he deserved. And the girlfriend finds it, which makes it even better. I love this movie. This movie is very multi-layered. I'm a big Clive Barker fan. I know I haven't really talked a lot about Clive Barker on this channel yet. There are plans. I just have to pick. That's the hard part. I have to pick. He's a brilliant writer. He has got a visual style that just... So if you take his writing and then you put it with Bernard Rose's visual style, the music in this is a mixture of classical piano and choral music that makes it just sound reverent like church music. And in a way, it kind of is giving reverence to what we believe in. I love folklore and urban legend. And, superstitious people tend to put a lot into these, almost as if they're as reverent as prayer or their beliefs in God. So I find the music to be very complementary to what's going on. Again, Tony Todd is a very tall, imposing man. I think he comes in at 6'3". That's a big man. Because I'm only 5'7". I'd be like, huh? And I think Virginia Madsen might be smaller than me. So he's very imposing. But he speaks with this soft, hypnotic tone. And anybody who's ever heard Tony Todd speak, because boy has done voiceovers, yeah, I would listen to him read the phone book, and I would probably be able to go to sleep at night because it'd be so soothing. I do follow him on Twitter, and he's amazing. He's very good with his fans. I would like to meet him eventually someday. But yeah, you go into that. It's not very gory, but each effect makes its point. The bees. There's a point where he opens his mouth and bees come out. There's another point where you see his chest is flayed open and there's bees everywhere. So if you're afraid of bees, I probably wouldn't watch this movie. It's a great film. It wasn't shot like a horror film. You know what I mean? When I say that, we all know that 80s slashers and 70s psychological horror had a look. Some were better than others, like The Shining was shot well. Rosemary's Baby was shot well. This was kind of like, it had that kind of higher brow. I hesitate to say art house, but it definitely was. There was thought put into this, there was money put into this, and there was time put into this. The performances are amazing. Virginia Madsen always does such a really amazing job in whatever she does. And she plays this stubborn, strong woman very well. Although I will say, I thought in my heyday I smoked a lot. These people smoke. She smokes like a stack. So, I mean, trigger warning, if you don't like watching people smoke, she's just like constantly chain smoking for a while. It's kind of interesting. There are boobs warning. Not like full on, here's tatas, but she's taking a bath and you see a little bit of side boob and a little bit of like her arms are covering, but there's stuff spilling out. And again, in the police station, there's some side boob. So just, boob warning. But this is just, oh my word. This is a very artistic, well done. The story is very unique. Like I said, I'm familiar with a similar urban legend called Bloody Mary, and I know a lot of people are familiar with that, especially because they did an episode of Supernatural around it. This is almost like, it's like they borrowed some stuff from that and then fleshed it out. Speaking of flesh, I am aware that there are 2 sequels to this and a remake. Or is it a remake? No, it's a direct sequel to... So there's what I just watched, Candyman. Then there's Candyman Farewell to the Flesh was the second one. I cannot remember the name of the third one. And those are, it's like 1, 2, 3. And then Jordan Peele came out with Candyman in like 2017, I think. My year, I could be wrong on the year. But that is a direct sequel, I think, to Candyman, if I read that correctly. I have not watched them yet. I don't really have any plans to. I think this is perfect and it stands alone on its own. I love this film. I can't say it enough. And the Ted Raimi cameo was just a cherry on top. If you haven't figured out by now, I'm a huge Ted Raimi fan. And it was nice to see him not die and not be the butt of the joke, a la Joxer from Xena and Hercules, and not just be the nerdy tech guy. It was nice to see something different out of him. But yeah, Tony Todd, man, we will do more with Tony Todd. The man's a living legend in the horror genre. Guy's also got amazing taste in music too. If you don't follow him on Twitter, follow him on Twitter. He's amazing. Not that he, needs me to tell anybody that, but yeah. Just go out and get it. Go out and watch it. It's legendary for a reason. So gore factor, not very big, but really good story. And I mean, I might not look in a mirror and say anything for a couple days. Very well written, very well directed, very well acted, very well shot. This movie is high on my list of recommendations, especially if you're just breaking in to the world of the supernatural. But on that note, I have rambled on for a very long time, and I've probably reiterated several points several times over. So I'm going to tell you good night, my creeplings, and I'll see you next time.